Good morning. Today, I want you to meet someone. She's 90, and she told me something I haven't stopped thinking about, that she feels like she's living her second childhood. I think you'll recognize the feeling she's talking about.
My name is Margaret. I'm 90 now, and I know what people usually expect a 90-year-old to talk about. They expect aches, or worries, or the way time flies, or how everything used to be better. And some days we can talk about those things too, because life is life, but that is not what is on my mind this morning. The funny thing is, lately I've been feeling something I didn't expect at this age. It feels like a second childhood, not the same childhood I had, but a gentler one. And the only way I can explain it is to start at the beginning. When I look back on my first childhood, the word that comes to me is careful. I was careful with my voice, careful with my face, careful with my opinions, always watching first and joining later, if I joined at all. I could stand at the edge of a room and feel like everyone could see me, even if nobody was looking. And I truly thought that was just the kind of person I was. It wasn't a dramatic childhood, and I don't tell it like a tragedy, but it was heavy in small ways. I felt like an outsider more often than I felt like I belonged, and I worried about getting things wrong, saying the wrong thing, laughing too loud, taking up too much space. I would watch other children run into games, like the world was made for them, and I would stand there trying to figure out the rules from a distance, because I was sure that if I stepped in, I would do it wrong and everyone would know. So I learned to be helpful, because helpful children are often safe children. I became the one who offered, who noticed, who tried to make things easier for everyone else, because that felt safer than being seen. I got very good at reading grown-up faces too, the tone of a voice, the way a cupboard closes, the tightness around a mouth, and you learn, without anyone spelling it out, what's allowed today and what isn't. What I wanted was to belong without working so hard for it. You know that feeling where you walk into a room and before you even sit down, you're already checking yourself. Am I dressed right? Am I smiling too much? Not enough. Did I say hello the right way? I didn't know how to just be there. I knew how to be good. I knew how to stay small enough that nobody would look too closely. And I'll tell you something that's true. That carefulness made me attentive. I notice what people don't say. I notice when someone's smile is a little tired. I notice when a room feels tense even if nobody names it. And that attention helped me care for people later on. But it also meant I didn't learn play the way some kids do. I learned how to manage myself, and then adulthood came. And it gave me 1,000 reasons to keep managing. Of course, the middle years arrived the way they do for most people. Not with an announcement, but as a long string of mornings where you get up and do what needs doing. You make tea or coffee. You deal with whatever small crisis shows up. You find the missing sock that has somehow vanished in a closed house. And you honestly wonder if socks have secret meetings somewhere. You write something down so you don't forget it, and then you're off to work. I remember those early mornings at the sink before anyone else was up, packing lunches under that warm kitchen light. The kettle would start up. The counter would feel cold on my palms. And I'd do it the same way every time. Bread, fruit, something simple. And if I could, I'd add a little note. Have a good day. Don't forget your keys. Because love isn't always big speeches. Sometimes it's just helping someone get through a Tuesday. Work had its own rhythm too. I did hospital admin for years. The kind of job where you're always answering phones, moving paperwork along, helping people find the right room, the right form, the right person. And you learn to stay calm even when everyone else is rushed. And I kept my little comforts nearby, a pen I liked and a mug I'd had forever. The kind with a small chip on the rim that I automatically turned away from my mouth. And then evenings would turn into caregiving, because my parents needed more help as the years went on, and I was the one nearby. I'd click on the lamp, sit down with the medicine box, set out what needed setting out, check the time, make sure somebody ate, make sure there was water, make sure the small things were handled before the night got too late. It isn't glamorous, and it isn't the kind of thing people clap for, but it is love, and it can leave you feeling proud and worn out at the same time. The dining table was where life got managed. I'd sit down and there would already be something waiting there. The calendar open, a pen that chose the worst moment to run dry, and a little stack of papers that needed attention. Back then it was all paperwork, actual paper, not like today where everything lives inside a phone. And the house would be moving around me while I did it. My parents needing things, the kids calling out, my husband doing his part in the background, and me trying to keep the thread in my hands. Who needed what? What had to be remembered? What could wait till tomorrow? And time passed the way time passes, when you're busy caring for a life, not watching the calendar. You notice it in small changes. Coats and shoes shifting by the door, seasons turning, rooms quietly becoming something else. And through it all, I was the reliable one, the one who remembered, the one who found what went missing, the one who kept things moving, and then quietly cleaned up after the day. There were small moments of humor that kept me from getting too serious about myself. I've lost my glasses 100 times and found them on top of my head. Like they've been sitting there waiting for me to catch up, and I've sighed over a stain only to realize it was on the apron, not the blouse. And I've stood there laughing in the laundry room like a person who finally remembered that life doesn't have to be perfect to be good. And I don't want to speak badly of those years, because I loved people, and I cared for people, and I did what needed doing, and there is dignity in that. But there was a cost I didn't notice while I was living it. The habit of setting myself aside became so normal that I forgot I was doing it. And some nights I would lie there feeling like I'd lived for many people, but not entirely for myself. But even in the middle of it, I didn't disappear completely. The old version of me would show up in small moments, in a patch of sunlight on the floor, in a song that softened me, in that second when the house was quiet, and then something would need doing, and I'd go back to the list like I always did. Change didn't happen in some big dramatic way for me. It happened because life finally made me slow down. I got pneumonia and ended up in the hospital, and it's humbling because you realize very quickly you are not made of steel, no matter how long you've been trying to be. I remember the bright hospital mornings and those long hours where all you can really do is breathe while your mind keeps trying to run the day like nothing has changed. When I came home, the house looked the same, but I didn't. The kettle still hummed, the mail still came, the world still moved along, but my old pace didn't fit me anymore. I remember sitting in a chair, still weak, watching a square of sunlight on the wall, and feeling that impatient voice in my head starting up again, telling me, I should be up, I should be doing something, I should be catching up. And then something surprised me. I slowed down, and nothing bad happened. I wasn't being useful for a while, I was just healing, and the world didn't punish me for it. The house stayed standing, the day still arrived, and I started noticing things I usually rushed past. The hum of the refrigerator, the little nick in the table I'd somehow never really seen, and I realized how much of my life I had been moving through on automatic. My body forced me into a gentler rhythm, and what I learned was that being present isn't laziness, and it isn't failure, and it isn't something you have to earn by finishing everything first. It's simply being where you are, for real. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it as to how often my mind had been 10 steps ahead while my hands kept doing the work like a machine. Later, another shift came after I retired. After the goodbye lunches and the polite speeches, and that strange feeling of closing a chapter you've lived inside for years. The first few mornings without an alarm felt almost empty, like I'd gotten up and then thought, now what? And the quiet felt unfamiliar at first, not peaceful, just unfamiliar. But then I tried something small. I let the morning start without me rushing it along. I stayed in my chair for a while and just looked out the window. And it was almost funny to realize the world was doing perfectly fine without my running around. And when I finally got up, it wasn't because I had to prove anything, it was simply because I wanted to. And I made oatmeal and actually sat down to eat it. And I remember thinking, how have I gone this long without noticing how sweet raisins really are when you're not eating in a hurry? That quiet started changing my rhythm in small ways. I began noticing little things during the day that I'd ignored for years, and I'd actually let myself stop. And then there was a friend of mine, Linda, who gave me a little nudge without even trying. We were having tea one afternoon, and she pulled a tiny harmonica out of her bag, of all things. And she tried to play a little tune. It came out all wrong. She laughed until her eyes watered, and then she just tried again, like nothing happened. What stayed with me wasn't the harmonica. It was her comfort with not being good at something right away. She wasn't trying to be impressive, and she wasn't embarrassed by her own joy. She didn't give me advice. She didn't tell me to be brave. She just showed me without meaning to that life can still feel light if you stop treating everything like a test. And I started copying that quietly. I tried a few small things just to see what it felt like. I even got a little set of watercolors and I let the page be imperfect. I also remember wearing a hat one day that felt slightly ridiculous and decided I didn't care. None of it was a big moment, but together it did something to me. That's what I mean when I say a second childhood, not going back in time, and not pretending I'm young, but finally letting myself have the ease I didn't have the first time around. For me, play is just being curious again, doing small things without needing them to lead anywhere. These days I don't rush through mornings the way I used to. If music is on, I might sway a little while the kettle boils, and if I'm walking, I let myself stop. I look at a tree, I notice a bird, and I let the day be what it is, instead of something I have to conquer. And the strange thing is, those tiny moments make me feel more like myself than all the years I spent trying to do everything right. And something else softened too. I carried that outsider feeling for a long time. The feeling that everyone else got the rules and I was still guessing. But it quieted down when I stopped performing so much. When you're not trying so hard to be acceptable, you start seeing people differently. You realize everyone is carrying something. Everyone is a little unsure in their own way, and it takes the edge off that old loneliness. At 90, I do think about the end of life sometimes, not in a dramatic way, just honestly. I can feel my limits more than I used to, and I know time is not endless. But I also feel grateful because I'm still here, for mornings like this, for ordinary light, for warm tea, for a day that doesn't need me to prove anything before I'm allowed to be at peace. Before you step into the day, just pause and ask yourself, what is one small, kinder thing you could do this morning? You don't have to change your whole life to answer that. You only have to notice one small thing you can do with less hurry and more care. And if nothing else changes today, let it be enough that you showed up for your own life in one small, gentle way, because that too is a kind of beginning.
If you feel like sharing, leave one small thing you're doing slowly today, or one thought that stayed with you, in the comments. It might help someone else feel less alone.